You are watching Luntha television and it's time for news. My name is Helbert Katanda. Now let's have a look at our top stories. Pope Francis warns against using God's name to justify murder or terrorism. Pioneer Investments chief found with a case to answer. Malawi calls on African countries to amplify Africa's common position on healthy. And in news from elsewhere, delays at some polling stations as voting begins in Zimbabwe. We have these and more other stories to stay tuned in. Pope Francis has renewed his appeal to stop using religions to incite hatred, violence and blind fanaticism, and to refrain from using the name of God to justify acts of murder, exile, terrorism and oppression. The Holy Father made the sentiments through a tweet on the occasion of the UN International Day commemorating the victims of acts of violence based on religion or belief observed on the 22nd of August. We have the details.
Religious freedom has recently been violated in countries with more than half of the world's population, according to the report by Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need International, which for years has been studying the problem of religious freedom around the world and helping victims of acts of violence based on religion or beliefs. Florian Ripka, director of KICH in Deutschland, pointed out to Vatican Radio that increased violations of all human rights, including religious freedom, have been caused worldwide by the maintenance and consideration of power in the hands of autocrats and leaders of the fundamentalist groups. Aid to the Church in Need International also notes that some countries apply controversial laws restricting religious freedom against specific religious communities, generally without protest. On the other hand, violent attacks on the followers have been normalized and mainly not prosecuted. It continues to note that typically most religious groups experiencing persecution are from minority religious communities, and however most religious communities are increasingly experiencing persecution, like in Nigeria and Nicaragua. Meanwhile, Aid to the Church in Need International says that interreligious dialogue initiatives have increased, noting that Pope Francis and other church leaders worldwide have expanded their relations with other religious communities, as specified by the encyclical Fraternitude and many interreligious meetings.
The Vicar General of the Archdiocese of Lilongwe, Very Reverend Father Vincent Mokwawa, has encouraged the Catholic women in Malawi to make sacrifices in running the affairs of their organization. Speaking at the closing of a two-day training on resource mobilization, financial literacy and entrepreneurship for Catholic women leaders at Msamba Catholic Center in Lilongwe, Father Mokwawa said the women should carry their work at CWO seriously. The organization has since pledged its commitment to serve with zeal. Bernard Mwanza and Felicia Simwimba compiled this report.
The training brought together 2 representatives from each of the 8 Catholic dioceses in Malawi, and these were Chair Lady and a representative of the technical committee. Having been trained on how they can mobilize resources for the growth of the organization, the women have also been challenged to think new and innovative ways of generating resources for the organization to move away from the donor aid, and that such opportunities and proposed ideas should be interpreted into action. Father Vincent Mokwawa, who is also the national chaplain for the Catholic Women's Organization in Malawi, further said the women should engage children and young people in various resource mobilization and development activities so that they may grow up being part of CWO and the church as a whole. On sacrifices, Father Mokwawa, while giving an example of Maria Leah, the past Wuko General President, encouraged the women to take a leading role in ensuring that all affairs of the organization are progressing well without necessarily leaving the work to other people.
It is important that in life people have to sacrifice themselves for the sake of others. Jesus is the first one who teaches us about this. He sacrificed his life for the sake of the salvation of the world. Therefore, looking at the structure nature of the church, it is important that members like women have to sacrifice themselves for the sake of the church and this organization CWO. If they are going to do resource mobilization and investments, you need some people who have to start up this process in order to build the future of the CWO.
These women say they were delighted to have been considered with a training that has worked as an eye-opener towards new innovative ideas of how they can mobilize resources and move away from always calling for contributions from women.
As a church, we need financial resources to do our activities as women. So what we have learned will actually help us to prepare project proposals, to prepare business plans, so that we can submit to would-be donors. As women, we are challenged to prepare business plans and project proposals for resource mobilization, and then help out in our various dioceses.
The activity falls under the project to improve the active participation of women in the mission of the church through Catholic Women Organization supported by Missio Icon. Its aim is to promote empowerment of women in all developmental aspects of life, enhance understanding and practice of resource mobilization, fundraising, and business management among Catholic women across all the 8 dioceses of the Catholic Church in Malawi.
The Chief Resident Magistrate Court in Lilongwe has today found business person Zamil Karim of Pioneer Investments with a case to answer on charges of intent to defraud Ecobank Malawi 850 million kwacha by allegedly fraudulently obtaining a loan purportedly granted by Malawi Police Service. The court has also acquitted an employee of Ecobank, Victoria Chanza, who was charged alongside Karim. Justice Patrick Chira, sitting as Chief Resident Magistrate, delivered a brief ruling, saying a detailed ruling will be ready next week. The court is yet to communicate on the dates for the defense stage of the case. Minister of Health Kumbidze Kandodo Chiponda has stressed the need for African countries to collaborate in finding solutions to the impact of climate change on health. She made the remarks in Lilongwe when she officially opened a 3-day regional workshop on health and climate change, which commenced on the 22nd and will end on the 24th of August. Chiponda said the workshop marks the unity of purpose as delegates will craft a collective stance to confront the huge threats that climate change pose to public health across Africa. Richard Monoka reports.
According to Chiponda, the adverse effects of climate change are increasingly impacting the planet, affecting not only the environment but also the health and well-being of various communities. She said African countries are devastated with, among others, malaria and cholera, which are connected to climate change, hence calling on the delegates' voice to unite and advocate for a common position that transcends boundaries, resonates through diverse sectors, and rallies for escalated funding to address some of the challenges.
At this workshop, which is a climate and health workshop, basically the issue is that the first one is that as Africa, we need to have a common position. You're aware that there is COP28, which is going to happen in December. It's happening in Dubai this year. So COP28 is a rare opportunity for us to have discussions because you get so many countries, even partners gathered at one place. And this year, for the first time, they're going to have a day dedicated to health. Basically, what we're saying is that a health sector in all other countries, member states, Malawi, and even within the region, we have had so many health crises, health emergencies, which have happened because of the impact of climate change.
On her part, AMLEF Africa Group Partnership and External Affairs Director Des Dalako said the workshop is of paramount importance since they will fully integrate health into the climate justice dialogue.
This is actually a very important conversation that we have started today. Many of you were here during the opening session. You're able to hear some of the things that we are planning. AMREF Health Africa has taken a very significant interest and commitment in ensuring that health is at the center of every climate conversation. Here in Malawi, you have seen the effects of climate on the health of communities, of women, of children, and we feel very strongly with our partners at PAPJA, with other agencies such as WHO, with the ministries of health and the government officials. We are committed to work with African negotiators to come up with a common position.
African Institute for Development Policy, AFDEP Executive Director Elia Zulu said there is need for African countries to unite forces and mobilize healthy arguments and evidence that can effectively reshape the climate narrative.
I think the point that a meeting like this is about is really how do we push for that to happen. I think that there's been a lot of changes over the COP. There are a lot of issues that have been discussed over the years where there was no action. The countries make commitments. I think we African countries need to push, but we need to push from a position of evidence, a position of defining really the issues, and a position of defining the solutions. So I share the position of those who feel frustrated that these annual meetings are just about talk, but I think there have been movements.
Throughout the workshop, partners from AMLEF, African Institute for Development Policy, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, World Health Organization, and Wellcome Trust, among others, will engage in meaningful discussions of the Africa Common Position on health and climate change. The United States aims to shape policy decisions, drive advocacy efforts, and guide collaborative actions leading up to COP28. The workshop is being held under the theme "In Pursuit of an Unified African Position on Health in Climate Negotiations." Bridget Mwanoka for Luntha News.
You are still watching news on Luntha television and on our various social media platforms. Now do stick around as we'll be back shortly after the break.
Lilongwe Luntha komanso Mzuzu. Tiyeni tonse kumaphunziro a ntchito zamanja osafuna certificate kuti muphunzire. Kuyambira pa 4 September 2023, Lusotech yakonza maphunziro m'magawo osiyanasiyana ndipo pamapeto mudzalandira certificate ndi zida zoyambira ku macourse ena. Macourse omwe ali under 70,000 kwacha ndi monga ICT certificate, tailoring and fashion design, video production, electronics repair, phone repair, computer repair, komanso electrical and solar installation. Ndipo macourse omwe ali under 150,000 kwacha ndi welding and plumbing. Registration fee ndi 3,000 kwacha yokha basi. Ndipo kuti mulembetse imbani phone kapena tumizani message pa WhatsApp ku manambala awa 0888 114 412 komanso 0999 554 5449. Komanso uri mutha kufika ku office athu omwe ali ku Lilongwe ku area 1 opposite Admark mu White Falls. Komanso mu mzinda wa Blantyre tili ku Sunnyside moyandikana ndi Story Workshop. Masiku anotu siwongokhala manjalende. Tiyeni ku Lusotech.
Welcome back. Now let's have a look at our top stories once more before we proceed. Pope Francis warns against using God's name to justify murder or terrorism. Pioneer Investments chief found with a case to answer. Malawi calls on African countries to amplify Africa's common position on healthy. And in news from elsewhere, delays at some polling stations as voting begins in Zimbabwe. Moving on, there is backlash from Malawians over former leader of Human Rights Defenders Coalition Timothy Mtambo's post on Facebook, where he said silence is the best answer for fools. On Saturday, Mtambo wrote comments on his Facebook page which have been taken as an explanation for his silence amid calls for Malawians for him to speak out on various issues in the country. Relatively, he spoke to Zodiac Broadcasting Station, where he told the interviewer that Malawians express hate towards him on social media. We have the details.
The post has attracted public dismay as most comments from Malawians who flocked to the page footed the former Minister of Civic Education and National Unity. From the comments, people blamed Mtambo for betraying the nation through a series of national demonstrations which contributed to the downfall of the DPP regime. Some people feel the post is an insult to the nation since Mtambo used to lead demonstrations against DPP before being given a ministerial position when President Lazarus Chakwera came into power. Facebook user Joseph Egona wrote that Ntambo is a true definition of betrayal. Other comments say Ntambo was supposed to speak out and say sorry to Malawians for selling the nation to the current administration, which most comments expressed dissatisfaction with. However, other comments commended Ntambo for what some described as wise words. Ntambo has told local media that he is satisfied with the Tonse Alliance government.
And I help. So I accepted the cabinet post, and I do not regret. And some they say, I do not regret because I've learned a lot. I went inside, I've went inside and
in April 2020, Ntambo resigned as chairperson of the then popular and active rights group HRDC and joined active politics, where he formed a political movement, Citizens for Transformation, CFT. Later, he endorsed the Tonse Alliance, and he was the center of a spate of anti-Gen answer demonstrations, who was being accused of mismanaging the 2019 tripartite elections. Rashida Matantika, Luntha TV, Baraka.
Water, valued at 15 billion kwacha, produced by Lilongwe Water Board, is being lost annually through illegal connections and old pipes leakage, among others. According to Water and Supply Service Director in the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, Prince Mleta, the development has an effect on the country's attainment of Sustainable Development Goal number 6 and Agenda 2063. This was reviewed during the Lilongwe Water Board and JICA RISCAP project coordinating meeting in Lilongwe on Wednesday. Robert Edward reports.
With the country's potable water supply standing at 70%, according to Water, Environment and Sanitation Network Westnet, 35% of water produced by the country's water utility companies become non-revenue water, translating into 60 billion kwacha loss annually. This, according to Lilongwe Water Board Chief Executive Officer Sili Mbewe, is due to, among others, old leaking pipes, vandalism of the infrastructure, and illegal connections, making the board to lose at least 38% of the produced water annually, translating to 15 billion kwacha.
At present, we are losing about 38% of the water that we produce, and that translates into an annual revenue of about 15 billion Malawi kwacha, thereabout. That's as Lilongwe Water Board. But again, from the workshop, as you heard, we're also looking at the global figures, global in the context of water boards in Malawi. On average, in Malawi, I think we can put it about 35%.
He was speaking during the board and Japanese International Corporation JICA's RICAP project coordination meeting in Lilongwe, where JICA chief representative to Malawi, Kazuhiro Tambara, expressed satisfaction with Lilongwe Water Board's strengthened capacity to reduce non-revenue water and possibilities of managing the RISCAP project on its own.
Find first the cause of non-revenue water, and together with the technicians of Lilongwe Water Board, our technicians working together to find out the best solutions to reduce non-revenue water.
Lilongwe Water Board targets 35% reduction of non-revenue water this year and 25% by 2025. The project aims at strengthening the capacity of Lilongwe Water Board in reducing the non-revenue water, and it started in 2019, expected to end in 2024. For Luntha, this is Robert Edward.
And now in news from elsewhere, polls have opened in Zimbabwe as President Emmerson Mnangagwa seeks a second and final term in a country with a history of violent and disputed votes. The elections being held on Wednesday are the second since the removal of long-time repressive ruler Robert Mugabe in a coup in 2017. 12 presidential candidates are on the ballot, but the main contest is expected to be between the 80-year-old Mnangagwa, known as the Crocodile, and 45-year-old opposition leader Nelson Chamisa. We have the details.
Hopes to break the governing ZANU-PF party's 48 hold on power. Zimbabwe has known only two leaders since gaining independence from white minority rule in 1980. A runoff election will be held on October 2 if no candidate wins a clear majority in the first round. This election will also determine the makeup of 350-seat parliament and close to 2,000 local councils position. In several townships of the capital Harare, some people were at the polling station. The father of three said to his two other children, are working menial jobs and surviving hand to mouth. Delays in getting council ballots to the station have caused delays at polling stations called Reba constituency, the large voting area in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe's second largest city. The industrial city is traditionally an opposition stronghold, but ZANU PF is hoping to make inroads there. According to the presiding officer at the Kodrek Park polling station, the council ballots are expected to be delivered separately, and this was the reason for the delay at the some polling stations. At Maunga shopping center in the Makanden suburb, one of the high-density areas in Kodrek Park, a line of early morning voters expressed their unhappiness at the delay. Ponkono, a trader and a local resident, told Al Jazeera he was annoyed by the late start.
And that's the news for now, but before we go, a reminder of our top stories. Pope Francis warns against using God's name to justify murder or terrorism. Pioneer Investments chief found with a case to answer. Malawi calls on African countries to amplify Africa's common position on healthy. And in news from elsewhere, delays at some polling stations as voting begins in Zimbabwe. My name is Helbert Katta, and thanks for watching, and it's goodbye for now.